What's up, guys? Welcome back to Whiskey Dixon. I'm Sugarbear. I got my buddy Robbie here with me today. We're drinking Glenmorangie Lasanta, single malt Highland Scotch whiskey. Now, it's a 12-year-old whiskey that is matured in Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez sherry casks. So you know that's going to be a nice, raisiny, fruity, almost juicy whiskey even. 43% alcohol, so that's 86 proof.
Nothing to complain about.
No, not at all. And what I like about Glenmorangie, they do a lot of cool cask finish stuff. I mean, sherry cask finish is probably like the most common you see with Scotch. You know, it's always like a bourbon barrel or a sherry barrel. But Dr. Bill Lumsden, I believe his name is, he's the master distiller, which I know he probably hates that term too. I always forget. It's like being called directors or managers more.
Yeah.
Because like, apparently master distiller is not like a real thing. He has a PhD in, I think, biochemistry, so he has probably the best knowledge of the way whiskey responds to different types of wood. So they're always really innovative with their cask finish stuff. I mean, they do like a rye barrel finish. They do they just released one called a Tale of Cake that's a Tokai finish, which is it's like a Hungarian dessert wine. But this is like just the most classic finish that you see in most Scotch whiskeys. It tends to be sherry cask. They just work so well for these styles of whiskey.
I get butterscotch right off the bat.
Oh yeah, butterscotch, little raisin, plum maybe.
Definitely plum.
Oh yeah.
Lingering though too. The aroma's really lingering. It's not like a quick
It's
in
thick.
and out.
No, I would say Glenmorangies tend to be really light-bodied, but this one is a little heftier. This one definitely has a bit more substance to it. Let's see how she tastes. Oh yeah.
Oh, that's way too drinkable.
Oh yeah,
Cow.
that's dangerous. Oh my god. Marzipan, raisins, cinnamon. I would say like cinnamon raisin.
Yeah, definitely, especially with the heat.
There's
it's
some
almost
spice.
like a hot tamale.
Yeah.
Like a level of cinnamon.
Oh, it's so
Like,
good.
Oh, it's good.
There's a hint of peat to this one too, which is unusual. I feel like there's just a little bit of peat smoke working its way through there.
I'm still waiting to catch it. Let me see.
It's faint, but it's there.
Ooh, like Hershey's chocolate syrup.
Ooh. Yes.
Wow. That's uncanny now.
Oh yeah.
It's probably because it's like on my palate still.
I like the Hershey's chocolate syrup. I would not have put that together
Whoa.
actually, but you're right. There's also like maple syrup.
Yeah, definitely
It's
maple
syrupy.
syrup.
Like it smells like syrup.
And I haven't had a lot of Glenmorangie, but for what I've had, that's not a quality that I would expect from it so much. More
yeah,
of a vanilla.
Yeah, well, their standard 10 is just a bourbon barrel aged, and it's really light body. Glenmorangie has the tallest stills of any distillery in Scotland. They actually use stills more commonly used for like making gin.
Okay.
And because I believe the stills they bought were actually ex-gin stills from London, and
That's cool history.
it makes a really light-bodied whiskey. So like, Glenmorangies tend to be a great place for people to start their journey into single malt Scotch, because they're so light-bodied and easy to drink. There are a couple exceptions, like there's Signet, which is a pretty thick, heavy-duty. They're using chocolate malt, and they're using these crazy designer casks. They're using like the most expensive designer casks to age it in, and that's a more premium bottle from them. That comes in around, I think that's like a $200 bottle, something like that.
Okay.
They also have the new Tale of Cake is another one where they took that really light-bodied original sort of 10-year, and then they finish it in the Tokai wine cask, and it becomes a whole different thing. It becomes thick and just rich and dense. You kind of have the same thing going on here. And when they first came out with this, they did 3 different cask releases. They did Sherry Cask, which is the Lasanta. There's the Quinta Ruban, which is the port cask one. I don't know if you've had that one. Excellent.
Don't think so.
And then they also did my favorite one, which is it's called the Nectar d'Or, I think. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. and that is a Sauterne cask finish, which is like a small white wine cask, and it's really oaky. I'm assuming the style of wine is really. I've never drank Sauterne wine, but the casks themselves are really small, and then the port casks they use are gigantic, and then the sherry cask kind of falls in between those. A sherry cask is like a little bigger than this is like a bourbon cask right here. It's a little bigger than this, but it's not like a port pipe, which they call them, are huge. I mean, it would like take up most of this room.
That's cool.
They're massive.
So cool to see.
Oh yeah,
Make some furniture out of that.
If you go to Glenmorangie, they'll have you. They make sure you turn off your phones and stuff because the air inside the warehouses is pretty flammable because all the alcohol evaporating. But they'll have you go into the warehouse. And they line up, they have the 3 casks there, the Sauterne cask, the sherry cask, and the port cask. And have you smell them and taste them straight from the barrels, which is really cool. Yeah, you get to try them all at like cask strength. Yeah, neat distillery. If you ever get a chance to visit, it's in Tain, Scotland. It's a real like barley producing region, so they get most of their barley from right around the distillery, just various farms right around the distillery.
That's cool again, because just kind of keeping things close to home instead of huge export-import, ordeal.
And another interesting thing with Glenmorangie, they're actually right by, not necessarily the ocean, but they're right by the Cromarty Firth, which is it's a bay essentially. They call them firths, and you don't really taste that reflected in their whiskeys at all. I feel like there's no maritime character, and they don't try to advertise any of that. And again, I think that goes back to when you're making such a light-bodied whiskey, it doesn't absorb as much of the character around it. It's not as abrasive on the barrel, and so you don't get as much complexity with age that you see. Like the opposite of this would be like Old Pulteney, where they use the shortest stills in Scotland, just short, fat. They cut the necks off them to fit them into the distillery when they got them originally. They just kept it like that. And so at a young age, their whiskeys tend to be pretty abrasive and harsh. And then with time, they become amazing because they're abrasive and because they do so much like erosion to the barrel, they get so much more influence over time. So it's just weird to see how it's a good example of how the shape and size of the stills affects the outcome even 10 20 years on.
That'd be a really cool episode with infographic, like show a picture of what that would look like. I'd love to see what that would be, because I don't really have anything in frame of reference for
like
that.
What a still looks like.
Yeah, I know like a pot still or like a copper still, some basic
they're all
stuff
copper.
Like
Yeah, they're just in Scotland, every distillery uses different stills from every other distillery. Like no distillery has the same stills shape and size as the other one. And that's on purpose. There's like 1 or 2 companies that make all these stills. They have to place their order because they have to replace their stills every like 20 to 40 years, something like that. They do. The copper starts to wear out. What's interesting, these companies have all the blueprints for all the stills for all the distilleries, and they'll never make like new stills for these other distilleries, like shape-wise, because it'd be copying. Like they all essentially have their own unique stills. Whoa. And that's why you get the unique characters in all the different whiskeys. Yeah, and
that's some science.
No, yeah, and there's like one company that makes all of them basically. It's just they're just copper, and you got to place those orders like 10 years in advance. Like they need to know 10 years in advance when you're going to need your next set of stills. Wow. Because they're making them. They're constantly making them for all the like 130 distilleries I think in Scotland.
That's some planning for expenses.
Yeah, that's Scotch is all about time. Everything just takes. It's like the slowest maturation of any spirit. It's just time.
I think that's what I taste in Scotch that I don't taste in a lot of other whiskeys. Like I really enjoy. It's almost like the flavor. It sounds really like existential, but like the taste of time. Like there's
that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what.
Not many other things besides like maybe some like dry-aged beef or something like that, where you can taste the time on it.
And even then, how long is that beef going to sit there? Right. Whereas with Scotch, it's usually at least like 10 or 12 years.
That's a child.
Exactly, and it absorbs those flavors from its immediate surroundings, which I've always thought was one of the coolest things about Scotch whiskey.
That's awesome.
Any other final thoughts on the Lasanta?
Yeah, what I get from this is I kind of was entered into Scotch with Islay Scotch, so the smokier the better was kind of what my palate craved when I first started drinking Scotch. And so when I kind of came back and revisited some of the lighter bodied Scotches, I wasn't a huge fan personally, because I thought, what's the point? You know, that was my mentality at the time. I was probably close to 20.
You like the ferocity of the Islay Scotch as opposed to like the delicate sort of notes.
Right. And so like this is kind of a cool, now I really enjoy the delicate Scotches, but also for someone who's in between, who is kind of wanting to come back to the more delicate, you can kind of get peated out after a while.
Oh yeah.
And so like with
There's only so many peaty whiskeys.
Yeah. This is a nice full-bodied flavor for Glenmorangie.
Oh yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Versus some of the other stuff you have, it just is real quick finish and easy drinking.
No, this one stays with you. It's got a good
I'm
finish
still
to it. Right?
churning it.
It's almost chewy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, chewy, like gummy bears.
Yeah.
Like definitely.
Well, I guess that about wraps it up. If you enjoyed this, check us out on Instagram. Give us a thumbs up. Please subscribe. Let us know if there's anything else you want to see us review. I'm sure we'll be reviewing more stuff from Glenmorangie. It's one of my favorite distilleries. And until next time, Sugarbear,
Robbie.
and cheers. Keep on drinking.